Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Again, as I said, this is being recorded. I'm Jen Dalton. I'm our moderator for today. And the topic for today really is around understanding what does it mean to be extraordinary? How do we get there? What does that look like? What's that little difference between ordinary and extraordinary? And we're going to talk through a couple of different dimensions. We're going to look at it from a golf lens, from a business lens, from a life lens. And I couldn't be happier than to have two of my good friends as our guests, featured guests. And of course, this is Vijay's sponsored webinar from Integrity Financial. So Vijay, if you want to kick us off as a quick intro, and then we'll move to Tina and jump into our questions.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been in the financial advisory space for 38 years and a golfer, passionate golfer for about 20 years. And I find so much similarity between golf, life, and business that we'll talk about. And glad to be joining you today and happy to see so many people on the program.
And Tina, welcome. We're excited to have you. Thank you for taking time to prepare and bring your wisdom. So why don't you introduce yourself to the group also?
Well, it's always a pleasure to connect with you and also my new friend Vijay. So I'm the CEO of Women on Course, and I also am the founder of Fox Paradigm Consulting. And I know a little bit about the golf course, probably not nearly as much as Vijay, but I certainly have a lot of fun. And in connecting with him, not only do we figure out we have that passion, but we also have this passion for trying to be extraordinary in life in general. So looking forward to today's talk.
Well, I am thrilled to be able to bring both of you together. I love it when different worlds collide in a beautiful way. One of the things you have in common, of course, is being business owners, entrepreneurs, and traveling that journey. To give folks on the call a little bit of context, I'd love to learn a little bit more about your story and specifically, what was that pivotal moment that helped you launch your business and sort of get you where you are today? So, Vijay, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so I used to work when I first started in this business with a company called New York Life. They taught me the business, but at some point I realized that it's very important for me to branch off on my own because although they were a good company, no one company, no matter how big or how good, can have all the answers to all the clients' needs all the time in a cost-effective fashion. And in order to be truly independent, I had to start my own practice. And so that was a pivotal moment from a career standpoint. I've had many pivotal moments, such as leaving India for Africa and so on. But I think from a career standpoint, that would be it. That was about 26 years ago.
And Tina, how about for you? What was a pivotal moment that helped you decide I am venturing out into the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, so it didn't start off that way. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I always thought I had an entrepreneurial spirit. But like a lot of people, I graduated from school and I ended up going into corporate America for 22 years. Started a family. And when my boys got to a certain age where they recognized that my career path, which was taking me on an 85% to 90% per week travel situation, my 5-year-old at the time, he caught me packing yet again for another East Coast, West Coast flight. And he said at 4:30 in the morning when he woke himself up, only in his very innocent little boy voice, he said, "You know, mommy, you've been gone too long." And that really struck the dagger in the heart as to what my selections were in life and how I was going to create a world in which I could satisfy career and family. And it wasn't easy. It took a couple years of figuring that out and flying around the country, but opportunities arose. I ended up actually starting off with demotions. I demoted myself 9 different levels in business just to get to a stable place where I could think. And then an opportunity with my husband popped up for us to start our own business in the world of title and settlement. And so I became the co-owner of Cobalt Settlements in Virginia. And from there, we built that out. And then I decided to begin my own company. And I partnered with Donna Hoffman with Women on Course. And that's where I am today.
And when you look back over your career, who are the people that played a really important role? I mean, I know we all can probably highlight a dozen people that really made a difference. But in your mind, as you think about being a leader, Tina, who stands out for you as you look back in your career?
I would venture to say most people have had bosses, and I certainly had my fair share. In that 22 years in corporate America, I had 25 bosses. So there was no shortage of rotation. And reflecting on that, there was really one that stood out among everybody else. And his name is Manny. And Manny was, the reason why he stood out is because he was a champion for me. He was somebody who would go to bat for me. And I always felt like everything that he talked me through was for my benefit. The other thing he did was he was always in communication with me, not from a micromanagement standpoint, but really from the standpoint of understanding what it is that I was trying to do with my career, what it was that I was working on at the time, who I needed to be connected with. He was a rare individual who worked outside of the boundaries of his management title in order to become my friend and my ally. And so I never forgot that. And I carry that forward as to that's what a really good manager of people should look like.
And you've mentioned that one of the things that you and Manny had in common were values and how important that was. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that's an important takeaway for people to really hear and internalize that, having a great manager, it is very rare, but there are some things to look for to help you identify who that might be.
Yeah, so one of the values really centered around how you treat people. He's a very outgoing personality, and he'll tell you, and he's from New York, so there's no like shirking on what he's going to tell you, right? Or the truth of the matter. But in that, he always did it with kindness. And again, he always did it in a way where he knew the other person would be able to accept it. And so we shared that value because I really enjoy connecting with people. I'm very curious about people. And so we shared in that values. Now, that's not to say that we didn't have our battles too. So if one of us felt like the other one was a little bit out of alignment because of that value of respecting people, we wanted to make sure we heard each other, even in the difficult spaces. But we kept it respectful. We kept it, above board in business, and we always had a really great relationship. So that was a key, having that shared value.
And Vijay, how about for you? Who really shows up in your mind?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking that there are a couple of situations that point out to making a big difference. One was about 25 years ago, I had the good fortune of getting involved in some business coaching. And I had been putting it off because it's kind of expensive. At least that's what I thought. However, I cannot say enough good things about a business coaching program in general, and specifically about the strategic coach program that I participated in. And my coach was Gina Pellegrini, and she basically changed my life. And to be honest, in the beginning, I felt that I was just spending all this money and not getting any returns. But she said, you signed up for 3 years. And after about a year and a half, I started to see a big turnaround. And it changed my life. I went from a person who was working very hard in the business to working on the business and having the balance that most entrepreneurs crave. And today, for instance, we're talking about golf, life, and business. When I plan my schedule, what goes on that first is my golf and my travel and my vacations and my family time. And then the business comes around that. And it's amazing because it's a mindset change, and it took a while to do that. So I cannot say enough good things about using a business coach. And the second thing, in my particular case, was actually an institution. And the institution I'm referring to is my boarding school. I went to a boarding school in India, arguably India's premier boarding school. And it taught me the importance of teamwork. You never do it alone. And it also made me independent. So I always have the feeling that I can pretty much conquer any challenge because there is no growth in the comfort zone and there is no comfort in the growth zone. So you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable until it comes second nature to you. So that's been my experience.
I always love your isms. When you think about mentoring others, and you were just talking about, I think both you and Tina, that nothing comes easy. It always takes work. There's no sort of quick win, easy path. So when you think about mentoring future leaders, just as these individuals mentored you, Vijay, what's important when it comes to being a mentor? What have you learned? What do you try to put in place as you develop future leaders, or even just mentor people you work with and collaborate with?
Yeah, so when I think of mentoring, I'm obviously mentoring people that work with me, but I'm also mentoring allied professionals. I'm mentoring to some extent even our clients. And essentially, the conviction convinces. So if I feel very strongly about something, it gives me enough inspiration and motivation and determination to see it through, to convey that to other parties that might potentially benefit from it. But beyond that, I think it needs to be a two-way street. You cannot force something on someone. They must want it. But what I have found in my particular case is that almost always the teacher actually learns more than the student. And I'm an ardent student of our industry, and I believe I will continue to always be interested in supporting others who want to improve their financial lives, whether they're clients or allied professionals.
Well, and hopefully, I would imagine most entrepreneurs and business owners always remain students because there's always something more to learn when it comes to running your business. Tina, how about for you? When you think of mentorship, what what's an important conversation people should have that maybe they're not having?
Well, first, I'm going to agree with Vijay. I think that as a mentor, I think that I gain more sometimes than the student. So I completely agree with that. For me, mentorship didn't come easy, and I didn't seek it, quite honestly. When I came out of school, I came from parents who said, you just put your head down and you work really hard. There was never, hey, put your head down, work really hard, and seek out help from other people who've gone before you to help you. That was never discussed. So it never occurred to me that I should do that. And as I continued down the path, I saw a lot of my male counterparts getting a lot of daily wisdom from folks in the organization. And so I sort of missed out on that until very late in my career. That exposure piece was very important. I was always focused on the performance piece. And as I came into this recognition, I started realizing, you know what, I don't want anybody else like me to have to go through the school of hard knocks if there is available, human resources to tap into. And so creating a mentorship program, whether it was with women in business and women on course, or even with my alma mater, became of great interest to me. And in doing so, I found that it's not just mentorship, which is really great, shared values, supporting someone over maybe a long period of time, but not necessarily on a daily basis. But then there's this other concept of sponsorship that came out, which is as you mentor people, sometimes people are in a position to not just mentor you, but they're able to pull you through in an organization and help you gain access to promotions, better pay, whatever the case is. And then I also noticed, and I had a huge miss on this too, was there are champions. These are the people in the organization that you feel are the untouchables, right? The company group chairman or the CEO or the president. And, depending on where you are in the organization, you think, that's not somebody that I should go and talk to. And I certainly shouldn't ask them to mentor me. But they can be champions if they know of you in the organization and they've heard from your mentors and or your sponsors how well you're doing. Those champions, they say one word. It's like the old E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. And so they can be huge allies in that regard. But that whole mentorship, sponsorship, championship thing it took me a long time. I figured it out finally, and it's very important in life.
So for both of you, since I do think entrepreneurs sometimes, I think people in general, but definitely entrepreneurs, I think we struggle with the ask, right? We struggle with asking for help. And in your mind, for both of you, and Tina, we'll start with you. What's a great way for someone to either ask you to mentor them, or what would you recommend as you think about asking someone to mentor you? I mean, even now, we all need mentors at every point of our life. So, what does that ask look like for each of you? How would you say this is a way to approach that, and what to specify in your ask?
Well, flattery will get you everywhere. So let's start with that, right?
Your golf swing is amazing.
Yeah,
You
that's
should be my
exactly right.
mentor.
You know, it's funny because the more I realized that I could ask, the more I heard yes. You know, I always thought you had to do before you could ask. But if you're asking somebody to be a mentor and you're asking them to do nothing more than to share their experience and their wisdom, you're actually giving that person a gift, is what I have found in my experience. Because more often than not, that person is not being asked for their experience and wisdom. They probably have a ton of it in their brain, and it's easy to expound. It's not something that they have to think too hard about. They just need to share a bit of themselves. And so to be curious about, you know, how did you accomplish this? Or, you know, I've been watching you on this and I find this really interesting and I'd like to learn more. I think a lot of people, and again, it's flattery, but it's honest flattery because you have a curiosity, they have the expertise, and you're looking to glean from that. So I think that the more genuine you can be in your approach, the more you've looked into what it is that you're trying to ask and ask cleanly and succinctly, I think you're going to get a yes just about every time. It's very rare that somebody says, I don't have time for this.
Vijay, how about for you? How do you coach people on making an ask?
Well, I think it's very, very important to recognize that the most important resource each one of us has is time. So when somebody is willing to give that time, it's important for the recipient to take that seriously because that's one resource that we can never, ever refill. And I think when I have someone committed to their success, willing to listen to you, willing to use your expertise instead of like my dad used to say, he used to be a pilot in the Air Force. He passed away. He said, look, in the air, you cannot learn from other people's mistakes because if you make a mistake as a pilot, that's the last mistake you're going to make. So you may as well learn from other people's mistakes. And so I have pretty much learned from other people and I want to give back. And I find that the best people, whether it's clients or allied professionals, the one who ask questions. You got to embrace criticism and look at it from every different point of view. And I think that way you can get a better outcome for all.
One of the things that I think you need to ask or have to ask for mentors is just networks. You have to have access to people. And a lot of times people don't reach out and build a network. So, Vijay, for you, what are a few networks that have helped you build those deep relationships where they could serve a lot of different purposes? It doesn't have to just be for business, it could be more broadly. But what are a few networks you recommend, or how do you think about networking? And that would help folks on the call.
So I have been involved over the years in many different networks. The one I can readily talk about is the Rotary International Organization. It is a remarkable organization. I've been involved with the Rotary Club of Potomac for almost 20 years. And it's basically a situation where you feel good about helping others in a volunteer service setting. And I did not join Rotary International for business reasons. I wanted to give back. I wanted to meet other people in the community and so on. But over the years, it actually has been very good for business because people see how you behave, how you react, how do you serve. And when they see that and they see that genuine sharing, when they have situations where they need input, they're willing to share that with you. There's something about breaking bread with someone on a weekly basis, you know, except for COVID. With Rotarians, you get together every week. And similarly, I've been involved in networks from my school and college. And over the years, apart from great friendships, you get to also make some clients. And all that I can say is that get involved in whatever cause that you are passionate about without spreading yourself too thin, but get involved for the cause, not for the business. And it will pay handsome dividends. And I'm very involved with my industry in an organization called the $1 Million Roundtable, and they have actually, shall I say, supported some of the causes that I worked on because they see that I'm passionate about that. So I think it goes both ways.
Tina, how about for you? You're very mindful in where you spend your time. So, what networks matter to you and how do they show up?
Yeah, that mindfulness is driven out of necessity because, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and when you're a mother of two boys in elementary school, you really have to figure out your time quickly. But I agree with Vijay. I put it in the comment in the chat section. And if anybody has any comments, I'd love to see them in the chat section. When it comes to networking, I fully agree with don't spread yourself too thin. You need to commit yourself well. So in that, being thoughtful of where to go, what I have found is I do like that blend of fun and business, obviously, right? Because I'm the CEO of Women on Course. So Women on Course is a company. It's an organization, national organization that leverages the game of golf for business networking. And so it sort of checks a lot of boxes from that regard. But when you are out networking, the first thing you have to do is you have to show up. And I think a lot of people will click the box or will pay the money and then they won't show up. And I've never understood why be a member if you're not going to show up. And I also firmly believe that when you show up at these networks, don't be an attendee, be a participant, right? If you can participate and even enter into a leadership role, because then you find out all the ins and outs and you're almost put in a position where you have to network more because you're in a leadership role. I have always found that throwing myself all into those things have really gotten me connected very well and very deeply in a quick manner, as opposed to having to wait a year or two. So that would be my advice in networking: is show up, don't spread yourself too thin, like Vijay said, and go all in with networking.
So, you talked about golf helping build a network. What made you get into golf?
Business. I mean, the long story short, I mean, here's my story about golf. So it's me, and I worked in a predominantly male dominated industry. It was medical device. And so there were 95 men and 5 women, and none of us played golf. But every year we'd get together at this national sales meeting and we'd always be at some beautiful golf course. And I'm not knowing how to play. I'd go back up to my room and I'm thinking my boss is going to love me because I'm going to be pounding away at the computer. I'm going to be putting out all this work. And 5 o'clock would roll around and that was happy hour time. We're all supposed to go down, have happy hour and have dinner, right? So I went down for happy hour and I was coming in ice cold. I mean, everybody else had a wonderful day networking on course. And I had a horrible day in my office trying to figure out how to do some spreadsheet. And so I realized it took me 3 years, believe it or not. This is how resistant I was. It took me 3 years to finally go get lessons and to go out and play. And wouldn't you know it, the day that I showed up, and I was paired with 3 men, so they teed off first, I teed off from the forward tees. The day that I showed up, I'm thinking I'm going to play with Phil and Tiger and Arnold. And it was, Bob and Jerry and Matt, and they had no idea what they were doing either. And that's when I realized, oh, this isn't about the game of golf. This is about networking and connection. And so that's what got me into the game. And ever since then, I was like, okay, if nobody's really taking this seriously, but we're all trying to move things forward with proper etiquette, I know how to do that. I'm very good at that. I can do that. And I've loved the game ever since. I'm still not good, but I have a blast playing.
I think you probably undersell yourself. How about Vijay? How about for you? I know you talk about good days and bad days, and golf as a metaphor for life, but what got you into golf?
So thank you, Jen, for that question. I used to play squash competitively for India at a junior level, and I continued playing squash when I immigrated to the United States until I injured my knees, had some knee surgery, and I could not play competitively. My body would not allow me to play competitively, even though my mind was sharp enough to play squash. But I decided, as I'm getting older, I need to find a new sport into old age. That's when I discovered golf. But prior to that, I said, what are these guys hitting the ball and just walking after it and hitting it again and walking after it? It's too slow. But then once I got into it, and once I made a commitment to it, and I took lessons and I got club fitted and I tried to play with people who were better than me, and I was learning and getting better at the game, I realized a number of lessons. So number one was the fact that you can learn more about a person with 4 hours on the golf course with them than you can in 4 hours of meetings with them, because you can see what kind of personality they are. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. And some people take the game more seriously than others. Some are more aggressive when they play. Some are more conservative. Some people don't keep score properly. Some people don't like to wager. There are all kinds of people. And I'm not making a judgment, but I think if you're observing, you will know what kind of person you're dealing with. And so it's a great way to informally determine whether somebody is a suspect, a prospect, a potential source of referrals, or a center of influence to others over the course of the round, apart from getting to know them. Additionally, with respect to golf, I think what's important is that, as you said, it's a metaphor for life. I wrote a paper on it. Essentially, some days are good, some days are bad. Today is a windy day. The different elements. Someday you lose your way, and that's how life is. Sometimes you have good days, sometimes you lose some money in the market, someday you make money. And so I find that it gives me the solace, it gives me the place to be at peace with myself, to have the time away from the office, even away from other people who may be otherwise influencing, to get your own. To me, it's like almost like a temple, if you want to think of it that way. Right? And so I try to play 3 days a week. I had to obviously jigger my schedule to make that happen. And maybe that's another reason why I'm an entrepreneur, because I couldn't do that if I was working for some regular job. So that's my golf story. Hopefully that helps.
It does. Anybody in the meeting, please drop comments in on golf, especially on this next question. What's your favorite club and why? So Vijay, what's your favorite club?
So there are 2 ways to answer that question. One is the actual club itself. I use a 4 hybrid. I can show it to you if you like. Golfers. This is my favorite club, if you can see that.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a 4 hybrid by Ping. And I find it gives me the right balance of sufficient distance, sufficient forgiveness, as well as accuracy. So if I had to play the whole course with 1 club, suppose there was a rule that you have to only have 1 club, then I would use this 4 hybrid. I can use it like a putter as well. The other question is, what is my favorite club? Obviously, I live at TPC Avenel. I've got to know the people here. It's a good facility. Allows me to play at other TPC courses. Having said that, I've visited some really good courses at Pebble Beach, at Bandon Dunes in Oregon. It's a goal someday, thanks to you, to get to the Augusta for the Masters. And maybe if I can get to Whistling Straits someday, that'll be great. So that's my golf club story. If I may say one other thing, and that is in the golf bag, I just noted there are 14 clubs, right? And again, that's a metaphor for life. I run a financial advisory business. You don't have, in the financial space, you don't just have 1 account, like a bank account, for all your financial needs. So you need essentially a defensive club. Think of that as a bank account. And you need a driver, which is aggressive club. Think of that as, let's say, a brokerage or investment or stock account. And you need a whole lot of things in between, whether it's insurance or bonds or annuities or what have you. So I think golf has taught me more about business and life and financial planning than anything else. And I try to impart that to others.
So follow that one, Tina. What's your favorite club?
Like I
and
said,
why?
Vijay knows golf better than me, and he's actually smart because he chose that hybrid, because he probably could use that for everything. I'm going to start with the club, as in the location. So as CEO of Women on Course, I don't think I'm allowed to say one particular club. That would be a no-no. But
I'm forcing you, just to note. I'm forcing
that's
you.
right. That's right. So I have to keep that under lock and key. But I would say that, I really am a fan of any club that is rolling out the green carpet for the underserved, and the underserved being, in a lot of cases, of course, women. It's been primarily a man's game. I'm really happy to see that it's opening up to the world. I think Tiger Woods did a lot for that as well. So that's my favorite club. All right, as far as the club in my bag. So this one is personal to me, conquering a fear and something that I just couldn't do. So my white ball, my white two ball putter was my favorite club in my bag because it was controlled, it was easy to use. I actually got it as a gift from some of my students at one of my companies. But I kept looking at that driver and I would try it every now and again, and it was just a disaster. It was always a mess. And so that thing was always staring at me, and it has this cute little cover on it. And so it's always beckoning me, and I would just say, nope, not today. I'm not going for it. I'm not falling for it. And then when I finally took lessons and I figured out how to hit a driver, the driver became my favorite club because I overcame a fear and I was able to use it. But I do have a hybrid that my husband bought me recently, and I love it. I love it.
I know Ronald says if you want to score, learn to make the putter your favorite club, which Vijay, you brought up as well. And in our past conversations about if you can putt well, that's a lot of the course. Tina, you and I had worked on a piece about golf, and one of the interesting facts you shared was that 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs play golf, and 80% of them say that playing golf helps them establish new business relationships. So they may not go on the course per se for business, but that is, of course, an outcome. As we think about golf, and I'll stay away from what does it mean to be successful in golf. I think we've covered some good stuff, etiquette, get around the course. What does it mean to be successful more broadly in business or in life? And Tina, why don't we keep on with you? We'll start with you.
Wow, that's such a loaded question because, I don't know. I don't know if I can define success, quite honestly, because I think that that's a very personal definition for most people. And when down in Miami, I could say success, the definition is what you have to give up.
Hey, Tina, you're breaking up a little bit.
It was reminding me that in the through corporate, that there were certain things that I would have to give up and move to the next level.
Let me see if I can just message you. You're breaking up a little bit, Tina. Vijay, I'm going to have you answer that question, and then I'll come back to
I
Tina.
don't know my internet.
The question was something about
A little
success.
funky with the wind.
I think she's trying to say something. Hello?
Tina, are you still there?
I hear you okay, Jen.
Okay. So I think she may need to log back in. We'll see. But Vijay, why don't you go ahead and answer that question? I'll see if I can check on Tina. What does it mean to see? What does it mean to be successful? And what do you think people sometimes get wrong?
So first of all, I don't think success is a destination. It is a journey. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And the road to excellence is always under construction. And we have to remember that all that you want to do is give yourself the best shot when it comes to business and in life. And I believe that proper planning prevents poor performance. So the 5 Ps, as I call it. And in terms of success, a lot of time people get misdirected when they see someone who may be flaunting, if you want to use that word, perhaps a big home or an expensive car, or they fly first class or what have you. But as a financial advisor, I often find that people who are very successful, at least in the financial sense of the word, are actually people who are very modest. Think about the book, The Millionaire Next Door. It talks about some of the people who you may think they may be expensive, that they're well-to-do, actually not so well-to-do when it comes to the financial statements. So I've seen it both ways. And I think at the end of the day, though, money is a means to an end, not an end in itself. So you got to find the right balance, and that's different for everyone.
And you said proper planning prevents. I'm trying to get all the alliteration, all your 5 Ps. What is that one more time?
About what?
Proper planning.
Oh, proper planning prevents poor performance.
Okay. There we go. I think Tina's trying to log back in, so we'll give her just a minute. When you think about the difference between ordinary and extraordinary, I know that's something you and I have talked about a lot. Tell me a little bit more about that, and what does that mean to you?
Well, it's a loaded question, but I'll try to address it by way of an example. So we're going to have in a couple of months some horse races, Kentucky Derby and so on. And if you think about it, at the Kentucky Derby, most likely these horse races are literally nose finish, if you may. The horse that comes in first by a nose might win, let's say, 10 times the amount of money that the horse that comes in second, okay? And does that mean that the horse that came in first is 10 times better than the horse that comes in second? I don't think so. I think it's a little bit of an edge. And so as a competitor, as an entrepreneur, I'm always trying to seek that edge. Okay, sometimes the edge is information. Sometimes the edge is preparation. Sometimes the edge is connections. But at the end of the day, whether it's for golfers, it could be nutrition, it could be in putting, it could be in equipment, it could be the swing, so it could be the environment. So I think the point I'm making is that I always try to stay sharp on the education in my business. I try to stay sharp on the having the right mindset. So I think it comes down to having the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set. And so, utilize that to its capacity. And in the long run, we're all going to be successful. I think to the extent that you associate with the right people, that dictates some of that.
So Tina, welcome back. Glad you could join us. Sorry we had a hiccup in the lovely internet.
Yeah.
And maybe the impending wind that is coming. I know it knocks our internet out occasionally as well. We were just talking through what does it mean to be successful? I think that's when we lost you a little bit. So if you want to answer that and then just sort of follow into what does it mean to be extraordinary versus just ordinary, and how do those show up for you?
Sure. So, the success thing, I was trying to say that that's a very personal thing to a lot of people. But one thing that has really never failed me in seeking out whatever success means is being authentically curious. I was a military brat. We moved every 6 months to 3 years. And therefore, I was an outsider. And in many cases, whether it was another city, another state, or even another country, as an outsider, you need to learn how to assimilate quickly and try to connect with people. And so that whole situation helped develop my keen sense of just being authentically curious and getting to know people, know their customs, know their way of life, know what matters to them. And I became very good at asking questions. I think hence why I ended up in sales. But that has worked a lot. And as a leader in a company, I think when you're authentically curious about, who you're working with, who your customers are, what matters to them, and you're always seeking to be that way, you are going to find your edge. So that sort of leads me into your second question, Jen, about ordinary versus extraordinary, which is sort of the overview of this topic. And, it's very subtle. And it's very obvious. And Vijay and I had talked about this before, and I think he just gave the example of, a horse winning by just a nose. And it's that subtle. And what I've noticed is that if you show up, that goes back to the whole just show up, right, with networking. If you show up, if you care, and then you follow up with another action, and you just repeat that cycle over and over again. I mean, that's a very simple cycle. Anybody can do that cycle. I think that will start moving anybody from being ordinary in anything to becoming extraordinary in something. And so it's that simple. It's show up, care, follow up, repeat that action over and over again. So not too tough, but it takes a lot of work, especially in the follow-up. That's probably the one where I think people, they take a nosedive in the follow-up because it's hard. Otherwise, you're going to end up starting all over again.
It's hard. And then if you miss the follow-up, you know you missed it. They know you missed it. And then you're embarrassed to now follow up. because you didn't follow up when you should have in the first place.
Oh
So it's
yeah,
almost like if
very,
I ignore it, it won't be true. That's
right.
not how that
Very
happens.
awkward situation. And then you're like, well, I'm not going to approach that person again. Maybe I'll just go, the ego says, just go find somebody new to connect with. Well, that's a lot of work. So
Yes, follow up, follow up, follow up. Before we move into Q&A, as you think about what you've learned or just sort of final thoughts as we sort of wrap up this journey we've gone through, golf, business, life, what's a final thought, Tina, in your mind that you've learned about yourself that's really meaningful that you want to share with folks?
So this is my own personal experience as a woman in business and coming from, a family that had a Chinese tiger mom and a military father. Okay. So that's my background for those that I don't know. And with that kind of background, it was a very strict path with no deviations. And so therefore, most of what I did in business was very from the mind. It was from the head, and it needed to be logical. And what I realized and what I gravitated towards with certain leaders is that they led from the heart. And I thought that that was very unique. Now, Brene Brown has since made this whole concept of vulnerability, out for all the public. And I know that she even works with the military. So who would you think, who would think that the military would want to be vulnerable? But there's a certain aspect of showcasing an authentic side of yourself that may not be perfect, but it's very real and genuine, and people want to connect with that. And so I'm still learning that for myself because, my parents would have me say, no, just do this. So I'm sort of stepping out a little bit. Sometimes I'm a little goofy. We'll see how that works. But at least I feel like I'm being more my authentic self. So that's my parting thought on being extraordinary.
Well, and I think vulnerability can be and is being thought of as the new edge, right? If you're brave enough to venture there. How about Vijay for you?
I like to pick up where Tina left off. I think you cannot let excellence come. You cannot let excellence come in the. You cannot let perfection come in the way of excellence. The point I'm making is that you get started, and just like golf teaches us, no matter how bad a shot, you got to live it forward. You got to play it forward. So life teaches us lessons of what happened in the past, but we have to live life forward. So it's the same way. My approach on this is do the best you can, have fun, and go out and execute. So I call it the AAA formula, which is your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. You might have heard that somewhere before. I don't know who said it, but I've never forgotten it. And once Tiger Woods was asked, what's the most important golf shot during the course of the round? And he said the next one. So the point of this is you got to be in the presence and play the situation as it is, not as it has been, or as you might encounter 3 or later. The most important thing to deal with is right now. So I go by what is called the win formula, which is what's important now. And then also, when it comes to business, it comes to planning, I go by the WIT formula, which is WIT, whatever it takes, short of anything illegal, unethical, we'll do whatever it takes. We tell our clients, we tell our friends, we tell our colleagues, I tell my family members, we'll do whatever it takes to make it happen, right? And the point of all of this is that at the end of the day, golf teaches us there are times when you want to be aggressive. There are times when you want to be conservative. And I happened to have taken a golf lesson yesterday. And he said something to me which is very, very important, which was, particularly at my course, which is extraordinarily difficult within the TPC program. And he said that you want to play very aggressively, but to conservative positions, okay? So if you apply that to life, it basically says that whether you are doing business or you're doing investing, There will be obviously things at the extreme, but the vast majority of your effort should be where you have a 70% a better chance of success by playing aggressively to conservative positions. I thought that was very well stated.
Vijay, will you remind us of the quote you said one time about the reach?
Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, Tina and I were talking about how do you set a goal in life and business and so on. And when I first started in the business, at one time I had to make a very lofty goal. And then I found out at the end of the year that I didn't even come to 20% of it. And I felt really bad. And then the following year, I set a small goal. And quite honestly, it was too easy. I had no growth in that. So I said earlier that there is no growth in the comfort zone and there's no comfort in the growth zone. So the question is, how do you establish that? And I finally came up with this formula with the help of a coach again, which was that your goals should be beyond your reach, but within your grasp, right? So if you think about it, if you went to a doctor asked you, you went to a physical therapist and he said, well, you know, move this way, stand still and move this way. And you would go here. And he says, can you do a little bit more without moving your feet, body, front body? And you do that. So you can always reach a little bit more. And that's essentially what Tina and I were talking about. Thank you for reminding me.
I love it.
I have
I'm going to use it.
Absolutely. I have a visual of I can reach my hand up and then I can jump. And whatever I can jump and really get to me, that's that visual representation. I'm just short. So that's the only problem with that. Let me open it up to questions from attendees because there have been a lot of gems in this. Ronald or Jeff, Mary, anybody want to ask a question of Tina or Vijay? You can drop it in chat. You can unmute, turn your video on, either way. If not, I'll throw in some hard questions, but I'd love to make this a bit more of a dialogue as we have the next 10 minutes to really chat.
My thought on it, I'm reminded of a trip to St. Thomas. Many, many years ago, my wife and I had gone there, and I just happened to play with somebody else that I'd never met before until I got to the course. And we were playing from the equivalent of the blue tees, whatever it was. And my handicap at that time was, I think, 14 or 15. And I don't know what this gentleman's handicap was, but he certainly was taking a lot of shots. And so I happened to ask him, don't you think we should play from the, after the front nine? I said, why don't we play the back nine from the forward tees? We'll enjoy it more. He said, no. I think I want to play from these tees because I get more for my dollars. I get more shots for my dollars. So everybody has a different perspective on it. The point of it is sometimes in some courses, they suggest that if your handicap is in a certain range, play from certain tees and so on. But at the end of the day, if there's nobody behind you, you're not holding up anybody, you should play the tees that you want. It's about satisfaction for yourself.
Okay? I would agree wholeheartedly. So obviously, being a woman who plays, and a lot of times I play with men, I'm not playing from their tees. And so I play from my tees that I'm comfortable with. But I would say that, you know, it all depends on what kind of game you're playing, right? So if you're playing a game where it's like score matters, then you should play from where you need to play. But if it's a scramble, or if it's just for fun, if it's for charity, if it is, you know, Ronald, for networking purposes, then you just have the discussion, and I think everybody can play from where they are. But I agree with Vijay. It's really more, and you know, we saw a 30% uptick in golf last year. So tee times were back up to Kingdom Come. So I would say it's really more about just keeping pace of play, because if you do that, everybody's going to feel good. Nobody's going to be sweating it, and you're going to have a good time. So right now, that's probably the biggest thing, is just keeping pace of play.
Also, along the same lines, depending on the environment, for example, tomorrow morning when I'm playing, it's going to be below 50 degrees, I'm told. I'll play from what is called the front tees, okay, because the ball doesn't go as far. And in the summer months, I may play from the back tees. So I think the situation dictates that, and I don't always play the same tees, let's put it that way. My wife is a winner no matter what happens because she has a deal with me, believe it or not. When I go out and I wager with other players, if I win, it's hers. And if I lose, it's on me. So she wins either way.
I want you to know that my husband has never been on any of my Zoom calls, webinars, or anything, but for some reason today he decided to join. But you know, Ronald, the only thing I would add is that I think it's a huge courtesy when somebody decides to play at the tees with the least skilled. I think that's great. I would, however, clarify, because I've seen this with women too, they don't want charity. So if you've got a good game and your good game is at a white tee or a blue tee, then it's almost like you're giving yourself a major advantage if you're teeing off from the forward tees. So, or the red tees. So I would say, you know, ask, hey, do you mind if I join you up here? I think it'd be more fun because we're all together versus having the split tees. Or, you know, if it's okay, I'll just hit from my tees. And I think that way you save yourself, because I can see somebody saying to you, if you're going out professionally, hey, you know, you trying to get an advantage on me? So that would be the only watch out. But you're definitely a smart man for supporting your wife in the game, because not a lot of women play, and you want to keep them playing. So I think that that's a good strategy.
Thank you for sharing, Ronald. Any other questions from folks? I feel like there's so much flexibility you learn in golf that I wish would carry over more into real life. Like, don't get upset, just ask, have a conversation. I wish we could see more of that in real life, but thank you for all of those examples.
I'll make a final pitch on golf, because again, I don't even have an established handicap. But what I have found golf gives me is, one, it gets me out of the office and gets me outside, which really helps with the overall wellness of my being. It certainly gives me the opportunity to exercise, especially if people are going to walk courses. That's brilliant. It allows me to connect not only with folks from a professional standpoint, but I have to say, you know, one of the coolest things that I do is I play with my boys, who are 10 and 12. And it's very rare to see a mother-son combo out on course. And so we get a lot of looks, and we get people that ask, oh, you guys are, you know, playing golf together. And it's very special. So I get to do that with my family. I get to play with my spouse, who is far better than me. But, you know, seeing somebody who's really good at what they do, kind of sexy, I got to tell you. So there's a bonus in that. And then, of course, there's charity. A lot of charities have tournaments, and I wouldn't be able to participate in being able to give back in that way if I didn't know the game. And so there's just a lot of buckets that golf checks for me, and I'm very grateful for the experience.
And so, Tina, I know for our guests, you've offered a virtual membership to Women on Course, I believe, as a giveaway.
Absolutely.
So what I will do, Ronald, if you want to put your wife's name in the hat, or you can also join. Men are welcome at Women on Course. There tend to be more women.
I was going to ask that
Yes.
if there's really a preference to keep that organization more, you know, kind of female centric.
Vijay's already come on over to play, but I'll let Tina answer.
Yeah, we love any ally. And now, because our name is Women on Course, the majority of who joins us are women. However, we do have male members. We love our male allies because they support the empowerment of women. So anybody who wants to empower women by leveraging the game of golf, then we'd be happy to have you join us. The virtual offer that we are going to be giving away on this webinar is basically what we offer every month. We offer 3 different virtual series. It's an opportunity to dip your toe into our community. And then we have over 800 live events throughout the United States each year. So our virtual community is one where every month we do a golf Zoomcast, where we'll do something like 12 steps to better business golf, or the art of business golf. We'll do golfcabulary, or things that you need to know, strange rules. We do one called the Success Series, which is very much like this type of a Zoomcast, where we're bringing on outstanding guests throughout the United States. My focus this year is on women leaders who are gutsy and who are making positive impact on big stages. So I had a European champion on, and I've had somebody from EY come on, who's part of their diversity and inclusion entrepreneurship program. And then we also offer a virtual series on fashion. And I'm wearing one of our fashions. So we have a lot of partners that offer discounts. So that is what we are offering to our audience today. So thanks for joining.
And Ronald, that probably means you're an automatic winner. You or your wife or both. You know, we could figure that out.
All right, that sounds great.
But I will say, Women on Course has helped me get on the golf course, and I'm from Augusta, so it was very embarrassing to not be able to get on the golf course in a proper way. But thanks to Women on Course, I can. Ronald, did you have a question?
No, that's all.
And Vijay, I think you also have a giveaway.
I have an offer to give a signed copy of my book called Optimized Outcomes for anybody who's interested. Just send me an email with your address. We'll arrange to get it across to you. And I think that the book is going to be helpful to some of you to bring up some topics that should be discussed with financial advisors, but they often don't. It's not a substitute for a meeting with a financial advisor. The book looks like
Great
this. However, you can get it on Amazon, but I'm going to send it to you if you send me your address and personally signed by me. And thank you for doing this. This was wonderful. I made some new friends. As I said, there are no strangers among golfers, only friends we haven't met. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jen.
Thank you, everybody. It was a great dialogue, great questions. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been fantastic seeing you all. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. And thank you again.